On today's show, the Houston Rockets losing streak continues with the 131-127 loss against the Joel Embiid-less Philadelphia 76ers. Jock Landale completely sold on the final Rockets possession of this game. They had no answer for Tyrese Maxey all night, who dropped a 40-piece. The defense continues to slip, and that is a major concern. The great silver lining from this one: Jalen Green had his best game in weeks. We're going to talk about it all coming up right here at Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start.
Throw it up to Jalen Green.
Sengun here in the short row. Oh, my, that's the no-look.
Jabari for three and the win. Yeah!
Look at Tari, Eason.
Here comes Tari.
No!
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance is internal.
The Houston Rockets select Ime Thompson and Cam Whitmore.
One thing I have never done is not made the playoffs, and so we want to take that step here as well.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up, and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian, a credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin, and the show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube, where I want your thoughts on the final play of this game for the Houston Rockets in this 131-127 loss against the 76ers, who didn't even have Joel Embiid on the floor. My God, that final possession was... I'm still a little heated over it. It was very frustrating for a variety of reasons. We're going to unpack it all on today's show. Now, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer and making the show part of your day every single day. A lot to unpack from this third straight loss. So much for protecting home court, man. Rockets were dominant at Toyota Center. Now they're on a skid. They've got the injuries. They're clearly missing Dillon Brooks and Jabari Smith Jr. The defense continues to slip, and that is a concerning trend. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on. But I want to get into kind of the late game execution here by the Rockets, specifically the final play of this game. But I want to first just highlight and you know, look, we've spent a lot of time talking about Jalen Green's struggles over these last few weeks. So it's only right that when he has the best game that he's had in weeks, arguably his best game of the entire season, that we highlight that, because that should be the silver lining from this game. And that should be the major takeaway, is this game is how Jalen Green needs to play, or how he should play, for this Rockets team to be the best version of itself this season. And no, he doesn't have to go out and drop a 30-piece every night for this team to have a chance to win. This game was phenomenal. Jalen was incredible. He had 31 points, 12 of 19 shooting. He was 5 of 9 from long distance. 2 of 4 at the free throw line. You'd like to see him be a little bit more consistent at the charity stripe, maybe get a few more trips as well. But he had 6 boards. He had 4 assists, only 1 turnover. This was a phenomenal game from Jalen Green. Again, I think it's easily his best game in weeks, arguably his best game of the entire season. And it sucks that it was wasted and that they couldn't come away with the win for a variety of reasons that are not to do with Jalen Green. Because here's the thing. First off, over the course, and we're going to get to the final play here in a second, because that's been all the rage amongst Rockets fans over the weekend. So we're going to highlight that, and I'll share thoughts on it. But I think with Jalen, this is the type of game, the process. I talked about last game against the Suns, right? Not being a good process, right? He was 6 of 12 from 3. It was a hot shooting night. He hit some Hail Marys. I didn't like the way that he played in that game. I loved everything about how he played in this game. The way that he attacked, the way that he was aggressive, the way that, like, he had that one play where he drove in and ducked his shoulder into the defender and then went to his little, corkscrew layup instead of just trying to sidestep the defender and get to his little dipsy doodle corkscrew layup. Like he was aggressive. He was seeking contact on his drives. He was making really high-level, high-quality reads, drawing second defenders routinely over the course of this game. He was knocking down the open shots that he was getting within the flow of the offense. This was everything and then some as far as what you need and what you want to see out of Jalen Green on a consistent basis. Again, he doesn't have to drop a 30-piece every night for this Rockets team to have a chance to win games. He just needs to be able to knock down the shots he gets within the flow of the offense. And occasionally, you want to see Jalen have a chance to take over, right? You want to see him have the stretches where he just takes the ball and he's like, no, I'm him, right? I'm the guy. I'm going to go get us a bucket. And that's what he did in this game. Think about all the shots that he hit late, right? That insane, tough, contested three-pointer late in the game, when the Rockets needed a bucket. Jalen was on one in this game. So were Fred and Sengun. And we're going to talk about Fred and Sengun and how incredible they were as well. But I want to give Jalen his flowers here because that final play of the game was drawn up for Jalen Green. Ime Udoka talked about the play being drawn up for Jalen Green. And this has been a topic of contention amongst Rockets fans because some fans think that Jalen should have taken the shot. Other fans think that he made the right play. I think it could be a little bit of both. The play was drawn up for Jock Landale to set the pick and for Jalen to get a quick shot off. And that's what Ime said postgame, is it was drawn up for Jalen to get the quick screen and then be able to take a three. And Jalen had a window to take the shot after getting the screen from Jock Landale. And instead of taking the three, he went for another little sidestep move, and he drew two defenders. Was that the right play? To each their own. I think Jalen did the right basketball move. I think it was drawing a second defender works, right? And then not only that, he made the right read. He made a great pass to Jock Landale in the middle of the floor. And Jock Landale then proceeded to sell because he went up and attempted a layup that he didn't even hit, mind you. Completely smoked the layup, down three, with no timeouts remaining, attempted a layup. So it was frustrating for a lot of different reasons there at the, on the final possession of the game. It's, I don't know. I think that Jalen made the right read. I would have liked to see him take that shot at the same time because that's the kind of shot that he's going to have to take if you want him to be your go-to guy, if you want him to be, blossom into that star caliber two guard that we hope that he can still maybe turn into, then those are the types of shots you're going to have to be able to hit. But at the same time, he made a good basketball play. He got the ball to Jock Landale in the middle of the floor, and Jock Landale had Aaron Holiday wide open in the corner. And all it would have taken was one extra pass to one of your best three-point shooters on the roster to give yourself a chance to tie this game up and send it to overtime, or potentially just win out in regulation if Sixers miss some free or whatever. At least give yourself a fighting chance. And they weren't able to do that, unfortunately. So I don't think it was the wrong play by Jalen Green by any stretch of the imagination. I think that you can make an argument that maybe he should have taken that shot, but at the same time, I feel like if Jalen had taken that shot and missed it, then Rockets fans would be crucifying Jalen Green for taking that shot or taking a tough contested shot, at the end of the game rather than trying to generate a wide open look. And that's what he did, is he made the right basketball play. He made a good read, and his teammate did not deliver after that happened. Because again, Jock Landale had the ball in the middle of the floor. Jae'Sean Tate was wide open in the right corner. Aaron Holiday was wide open in the left corner. And instead, Jock Landale put a contested layup up at the rim and didn't even hit it. So this loss is not only because of that play from Jock Landale. There's a lot of other reasons the Rockets lost this game. The defense is kind of concerning. Some of the substitutions by Ime Udoka, some of the lineups that he chose to run with, specifically that lineup at the very end of the game, going with Jock Landale and Jae'Sean Tate on the court for the final possession of the game, a little questionable by Ime Udoka. A lot of different reasons the Rockets lost this game. But I think Jalen Green did everything he possibly could on that final possession. And I think he deserves a lot of credit for having, again, arguably his best game of the season, best game in weeks for sure, and making the right reads, because those are the reads that you've seen Jalen consistently making the season, where he's trying to do the right thing on the floor. And even though he had it going in this game, even though he was 5 of 9 from long distance, was on fire in this game, had a 30-piece, he absolutely had every right to take that final shot of the game. Instead, he drew the second defender, made the right play, and his teammates couldn't deliver, unfortunately. So it's frustrating, to say the least. That's also why it would have been, if you had Alperen Sengun in the game there for that final play, LP absolutely finds Aaron Holiday in the corner. And maybe we're talking about a Rockets game that you went to overtime and the Rockets won, instead of a game where Jock Landale is the villain for failing to recognize that you needed a 3 in those on that final possession and attempting a layup. It was a very frustrating end of game possession, to say the least. I want your thoughts. Give me your reaction to that final play of the game in the comments. Should Jalen have taken the shot? Are you frustrated that he didn't take the shot? How did you feel about the execution on that final play? Let me know in the YouTube comments. But I do want to discuss more from this game, the insane performances from Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun, the Rockets' continued defensive struggles, and how it's becoming a concerning trend that they are starting to slip pretty drastically from being one of the top defensive teams in the league over these last handful of games. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the NFL offers are staying hot on FanDuel, because right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action. Again, it's just a $5 wager to get $150. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. Right now, you can take a look at the outright betting favorites for Super Bowl 58, the San Francisco 49ers at plus 240, Baltimore Ravens plus 500, and then the next 4 teams in a row, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Dolphins, all at plus 850. So a 4-way tie there for that third place spot as far as the betting odds go. So if you've been thinking about getting into it, go check out FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started this NFL season. Again, that's FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, before I get into some of the frustrating stuff that we have to talk about here with this game and this loss specifically, I do want to highlight one more thing for Jalen Green's game specifically. I talked about him drawing the double teams, and especially that final possession, drawing the double team there. He had a number of plays where it really felt like he was leveraging his gravity, right? His confidence has been kind of shot these past few weeks, and it's been very clear, right, that he hasn't been the same player on the court. And this was the first game in a while where it felt like he was back to being himself, where he was driving, he was attacking, he was aggressive. He had that one play where he drew a double team on a drive and then whipped the ball over his shoulder to Alperen Sengun and got the assist that way for an easy bucket. Some really impressive playmaking by Jalen Green, or even just, even if his passes didn't directly result in a dime for himself, just his ability to collapse a defense and get the Sixers defense in rotation so that somebody else could attack and get an easier shot off. It was really a strong all-around game for Jalen in this one. So just, again, really liked what we saw out of him. Now, unfortunately for the Rockets, and this is becoming an increasing concerning trend here over these last handful of games, because they are allowing a pretty ridiculous number of points being given up over, and it stretches pretty much all the way back to the Bucks loss. So their first, they were on that road trip. Bucks, they gave up 128 points. Cavaliers, they gave up 135, sorry. Hawks, they gave up 134. Mavericks, They managed to win. They blew them out, so that's good. So that helped their numbers a little bit. Pelicans, they were back to kind of their defensive ways. But then this last stretch of games, 123 to the Pacers, 129 to the Suns, 131 to the Sixers. Their defense has been slipping. And that is really, really concerning because this team has built itself on this defensive identity that they've had all season long. And the defense started to slip a little bit even before the injury started to take their toll, right? The Dillon Brooks injury wasn't until, Dillon was playing hurt against the Pacers, sure. So Dillon went down, they're missing Jabari for this last game, full game. So you can't exactly blame the defensive slippages on the lineups because the defense started to slip before that. And that's becoming a little bit of a concerning trend here. The fact that you had the 76ers who didn't even have Joel Embiid, their biggest weapon, and the Rockets really struggled. And a big part of that was their approach to guarding Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey had himself a game in this one. The Rockets had no answer for him. They could not slow him down. 42 points on 13 of 26 shooting. Now, Maxey did go 2 of 9 from 3, but that was mostly kind of like self-inflicted. That's just missing shots from Tyrese Maxey. So, they contested some of them, but Maxey could have easily gone, 4 of 9, 5 of 9, whatever. He could have basically been on a 50 piece, or on pace for 50 in this game. The biggest issue was though, I didn't like the way that they tried to guard Maxey in this game, right? So first off, Maxey was getting to the free throw line at will in this one. 15 trips to the line. He hit 14 of them. And a big part of that was because of the way that the Rockets guarded Tyrese Maxey and the players that they tried to use on Tyrese Maxey. Now, look, I know, okay, you don't have Dillon Brooks. Sure, he's your premier defender. Dillon Brooks would have been the guy that you tried to guard Tyrese Maxey with had he been healthy, right? That would have been the primary defender on Tyrese Maxey. I get that. And he's your best point of attack defender. So sure, you're down Dillon Brooks. So you opt to go Jae'Sean Tate. Now, Tate was getting cooked all game. I know Tate is one of your best defenders, and maybe you just live with, hey, we're doing, he's doing his best guarding, whatever. It would have been nice to see Ime maybe switch things up over the course of the game because it never felt like they kind of switched up their defensive coverages on Tyrese Maxey. It was just more or less of the same of, okay, we're going to have the wings basically trying to guard Maxey and try to slow him down with the length and the size of the wings, whereas Maxey's speed was an issue. He was blowing by and getting by with ease Jae'Sean Tate. He was getting by Tari Eason. It didn't matter, right? You tried to, maybe try to use the length of those guys, and they were just getting into foul trouble. And Maxey was getting the entire team into foul trouble. Obviously, Alperen Sengun fouling out later in this game with his 6 fouls. Wasn't in there for the final possession offensively, unfortunately. It would have maybe made a little bit more sense to me to maybe throw Fred VanVleet on Maxey or throw Jalen Green on him, right? Have a guard on him, have somebody with the foot speed to try and kind of keep up with him, that kind of thing. But at the same time, like, I get it. You don't want to tax Fred VanVleet too much, especially in a game where you're going to need Fred's offense, where he had it going. Fred was on fire from 3 in this game. So, you don't want to put too much workload on Fred defensively because then, how much does that impact his offensive game? It's just I don't know. The Rockets, I feel like, could have done a handful of things better, maybe gotten a little bit more creative defensively, provided a little bit more help on Tyrese Maxey, maybe made some of the other players on the Sixers roster try to beat you. D'Anthony Melton wasn't having a great game, only 5 of 12 shooting. I wouldn't have, I could have lived with maybe them trying to force Tobias Harris to try and beat you, right? He was 10 of 18 from the floor. He had 22 points, but Tyrese Maxey was their best player on the floor, right? There's no Joel Embiid. There's one star player on the floor that you have to stop, and that's Tyrese Maxey. And they just literally couldn't stop him. So this is a couple games now in a row. The Suns game with the defensive game plan on Kevin Durant. Now the 76ers game with the defensive game plan on Tyrese Maxey, where it's been a little questionable how the Rockets have decided to execute some of this. And yeah, I get it. They're missing a couple of their best defenders. They're missing a couple of their key pieces. it's becoming a concerning trend where the Rockets are starting to slip a little bit. And I remember highlighting this a few games back when they were on that road trip where they got cooked by the Bucks and then by the Cavaliers, and their defense started to kind of show some cracks on that East Coast trip. This is a team that needs practice time. This is a team that desperately needs to be drilled and drilled and drilled again on concepts, on schemes, on understanding principles, because they're a really young team. Like, it's one thing to, veteran teams, you can roll into a film session and you can say, all right, this is, know your personnel. This is what's going to happen. This is how Maxey likes to play. He wants to get downhill. He's going to try to draw fouls. Boom, boom, boom. Like, this is how we want to defend him. It's another thing to actually have a full practice to really drill these concepts and make it work. And this Rockets team hasn't had a ton of practice time lately because they had the back-to-back with the Mavericks game, then going on the road to face the Pelicans, and they were back in Houston and they didn't practice that Sunday. Then they play, then they have then they have Christmas Day, no practice. Then they have the Pacers Suns back-to-back, and then no practice again. So they haven't practiced in like a week or something like that, or a little over a week, somewhere in that span. And when that happens, the team starts to look a little rusty. So that is a common occurrence with young teams. They start to kind of mess up and have some issues. So the defense slipping is a concerning trend, and it's something that Ime Udoka is going to have to address and try to get turned around, because if this team isn't a top defensive team, if this team isn't a top 5 defense, then they're not going to win a lot of games because their offense has been so wildly inconsistent this season. Now, that's the crazy thing, is they didn't have an answer for Tyrese Maxey in this game, but they were collectively offensively good enough to win this game because you had such monster performances from Fred VanVleet, Alperen Sengun, and Jalen Green. So they were good enough to win this game despite some of the defensive woes. And that's kind of the frustrating part, is even though you were injured, you were missing a couple key starters, Sixers were missing their best guy in Joel Embiid. This was a match of two shorthanded teams going at one another, and the Rockets were right there with a chance to win, and they just couldn't close this thing out because of the execution there on the final possession of the game, which is incredibly frustrating. Coming up, I do want to talk about the really impressive performances from Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun, as well as, again, some of the concerns with Ime Udoka and his lineups, his substitutions, some of the guys that he's trusting in this Rockets rotation. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Look, you shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to go out to an event, right? You're trying to go out and have a good time. You don't want to be stressed about the ticket buying experience. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events happening near you. Because look, I don't know about you, my least favorite thing when I'm buying tickets is you're going through the whole process, you get all your information filled out, you go to check out, and then suddenly the tickets are like double the cost because they're like, oh, here's the convenience fee. Oh, here's the handling fee. It's a digital ticket. It doesn't need a handling fee. Game Time gives you their all-in price guarantee, right? You see the price the whole way through. You don't get those surprise fees tacked on at the end, which is, again, so frustrating to see when that happens. And look, they're obsessed with helping you find the best deal on your tickets, right? They've got last-minute deals all the way up to and including right before your events start. They've got, zone deals, all sorts of deals that you want to take advantage of. When you're buying the tickets, you can see the view from your seat, so you know exactly the type of bang you're getting for the buck that you are spending. You've got to try Game Time. They are obsessed with giving you complete peace of mind and the best possible deal on these tickets. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off of your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. Now, a couple of the other reasons the Rockets were in this game were their two-man duo that has been the backbone of this Rockets offense pretty much all season long. And that's Fred VanVleet and Alperen Sengun, who both had really impressive games in this one. For Fred VanVleet, 33 points, 9 of 16 shooting. He was 8 of 12 from long distance, 7 of 8 at the free throw line. He had 3 rebounds. He had 10 dimes. So a 30-10 game for Fred VanVleet. He had a steal. He had a block. He did have 5 turnovers. So, that's a bit uncharacteristic for Fred VanVleet to turn the ball over as much as he did in this game. That's the one downside to this performance by Fred. And then Alperen Sengun, 28 points, 12 of 16 shooting. He was 3 of 4 at the foul line. He hit a 3-pointer. Only 7 rebounds. Did have 8 assists, had a steal, had a block. 5 turnovers as well for Alperen Sengun in this game. So as far as the Rockets, turnover concerns, these guys are the 2 guys who handle the basketball more than anybody else on the roster. So it's understandable that occasionally they're going to have some high turnover games. You'd like to see them limit those turnovers though. But as a team, the Rockets only turned the ball over 16 times. That's not horrible. But the turnovers were a bit of an issue in this one. The Rockets, again, with 17 total turnovers to the tune of 19 Sixers points. So that's definitely something that you want to see them cut down on. But look, this has been the Rockets' offense all season long, is the 2-man game between Alperen Sengun, Fred VanVleet. And when Fred is as hot as he was from 3 in this game, then the Rockets' offense looks really damn good. It's almost unstoppable at times when Fred has it going that way, because then defenses really have to honor him. They have to key on him. It opens up more space for Alperen Sengun. And Alperen Sengun is basically unguardable. The Sixers had no answer for him down low. Paul Reed was not the answer. It didn't matter if it was Mo Bamba in there. It didn't matter if it was Morris. Whoever they tried to throw on Sengun, he was cooking everybody. And that's maybe I don't want to even say it's a gripe. It's just when you see how effective the offense is when it goes through Sengun, I wonder why they don't just do more of it, right? Like Sengun got 16 attempts. Fred got 16 attempts. Jalen got 19 attempts. It's just, I don't know where else the Rockets subtract some of their offensive reps from, right? Ideally you just take away all the attempts from Jock Landale. No, I kid, but seriously, maybe you reduce some of the attempts for Jeff Green. He had 11 shot attempts. Maybe you reduce some of the attempts for Tari, who had 13 attempts in this game. But I don't know where or how the Rockets would be able to do it, but it just feels like when the offense is rolling through Sengun, good things happen. And, there's certain stretches of a game where the Rockets will have offensive sets that go to other guys, or where other guys are the guys that wind up taking the shots. And I know that some of that is just, okay, well, Sengun starts the possession and then it winds up being a Tari 3 or a Jeff, driving layup or whatever. And then same thing for Fred, same thing for Jalen. They can't always be the play initiator and the play finisher, but there's just something to the efficiency with which Sengun plays at that you'd like to maybe see him get 20 plus attempts per game, just because that he's hitting greater than 50% of his shots. So I would just love to see a game where they just go to Sengun every possession down, right? Just give him the ball constantly, see what happens. Because at the end of the day, very few teams have an answer, if any answer, for Alperen Sengun offensively. And in this game, it was nice to see him, the 2-man game that he had with Fred, the 2-man game that he had with Jalen. It's really a shame that he wasn't out there for that final possession in order to be able to make that play. But that kind of brings me to my final point here, man, is just Ime has been a bit questionable with some of these lineups and some of these decisions, as of late, with who he's trusting on the court. And that final possession, I get it. Jock Landale was out there to be the screener. He's your best screener on the roster, not named Sengun. I get that. But at the same time, final possession of the game, you're going to need a 3-pointer, and yet you have not one, but 2 guys out there who are not 3-point shooting threats in Jae'Sean Tate and Jock Landale. Now, I get it. You've got, it's tough to call on somebody who's been cold the whole game, like a Reggie Bullock, who didn't get any rotation minutes in this one, and you throw him out there. I don't know if they were capped on Tari Eason's minutes, and the medical staff was just like, you can't put Tari back out there. But, I would have liked to see a very different lineup out there for that final possession of the game, right? Give them a lineup where, Jeff Green could have been the screener on the final possession. and you put him out there and you have him, screen so that, you can get Jalen freed up. I mean, Jeff Green is an adequate screener. He's not as good as Sengun or Jock Landale, but he could have done enough to open up Jalen Green to have that final shot of the game, or potentially if you run the exact same play and you get Jeff Green rolling to the hoop, then Jeff Green makes that read to Aaron Holiday in the corner. Or hell, you could even have Jae'Sean Tate be the screener on that final possession. And Jae'Sean Tate is an underrated passer, and he would have probably made that read to Aaron Holiday in the corner. So the guys that Ime trusted at the end of that game, it's a little frustrating who he decided to roll with. And it's been a frustrating trend that he hasn't kind of given the chance to guys like, Reggie Bullock is on this roster. He's one of the vets on this team. I know that Reggie hasn't exactly produced a ton in the minutes that he's gotten, but the Rockets are hurt, right? They're injured. Dillon Brooks is out. Jabari Smith Jr. is out. Give Reggie some burn, man. And then there's also the idea of there's something to the idea of maybe letting Cam Whitmore get a crack at it, because this Rockets team is a team now again, offense wasn't necessarily the issue in this one because, Jalen, Fred, and Sengun were all on fire in this game. Defense was more so the problem, not having an answer for Tyrese Maxey. But still, just, long term, Fred's not going to hit 8 threes every game. Jalen's not going to hit 5 out of 9 every game from long distance, right? You're going to have some games where you need some offensive production. And I just, I don't see why Ime hasn't, given Cam Whitmore a chance yet. That's been a bit of a frustrating trend, and it's worth bringing up and it's worth repeating each time it happens, because there's something there where the Rockets desperately need a guy with Cam's skill set off the bench to kind of, spark some offense at times. Not necessarily specifically in this game, but just long-term in general, that's kind of a piece that they're sorely missing, is somebody who can provide some instant offense off the bench. And the fact that they haven't been able to get him consistent rotation minutes is a little frustrating at this point. So there have been some, Ime clearly has, guys that he trusts out there. Jae'Sean Tate is one of them. And look, I'm a big Tate guy. I think that Tate is a winning player. I think that he provides a lot to this team. Do I want to see Jae'Sean Tate in the starting lineup playing next to Alperen Sengun and screwing up the Rockets' offensive spacing? Also in conjunction with Jeff Green. Having Jeff Green and Jae'Sean Tate share the starting lineup together is like asking teams to double and triple team you, because no teams honor them as 3-point shooters. They just don't. Jeff Green, 0 of 2. Jae'Sean Tate, 0 of 1. They're not even getting 3-point attempts up is the problem. And the number of times that Alperen Sengun had to spin away from a double team coming out of the corners because of the way defenses were playing, Jeff Green and Jae'Sean Tate in this game, it's a little frustrating. So look, the Rockets are kind of shorthanded, and it's going to be a little rough and tumble now. They're 0-3 on this 7-game homestand. So hopefully they can get things cleaned up. They've got the Detroit Pistons as their next game. Thank God the Pistons managed to win against the Raptors, so that, because I was really worried that the Pistons were going to roll into Houston with the longest losing streak in NBA history, and the Rockets, as decimated as they are by injury, were potentially going to struggle in that game and maybe drop it. So hopefully the Pistons can be a bit of a tune-up game for this Rockets team, where they can get back to their defensive ways, get back to their identity, because this team needs to be able to play defense to win games. And I know they're missing a couple of their best defensive pieces, but they need to get back to some of their defensive principles. And yeah, we're going to see. We're going to see what happens over these next few games without Dillon and without Jabari. But with that, those are final thoughts from this one. Do me a favor, drop your thoughts. Give me your thoughts on this game, how the Rockets played, Jalen Green, his performance, the concerning slippage of the Rockets defense, some of the attempted schemes by Ime that haven't quite worked out over these last couple games, the lineup issues, all of that. Give me your thoughts in the YouTube comments. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube. While you're there, drop a comment. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.